Miss Hanley's here to talk about Murph.
Murph is a great kid. She's really bright, but she's been having a little trouble lately. She brought this in to show the other students the section on the lunar landings.
Yeah, it's one of my old textbooks. She always loved the pictures.
It's an old federal textbook. We've replaced them with the corrected versions.
Corrected.
Explaining how the Apollo missions were fake to bankrupt the Soviet Union.
You don't believe we went to the moon?
I believe it was a brilliant piece of propaganda that the Soviets bankrupted themselves, pouring resources into rockets and other useless machines.
Useless machines.
And if we don't want a repeat of the excess and wastefulness of the 20th century, then we need to teach our kids about this planet, not tales of leaving it.
We live in a twilight world. This should be a very quick recording, yeah? So, right now, I should say it's November 2025. Right now, the thing that's sending a lot of people bonkers is this Bereznik cruise missile, which the Russians are claiming to have. We shouldn't really say Russians because it's not really the all Russian people, is it? It's the establishment of Russia. Yeah, Putin and the boys. But yeah, man, they're claiming they have a nuclear-powered missile that will essentially have an unlimited range. Yeah? And it can, allegedly, carry conventional warheads and also carry nuclear warheads. So yeah, just to say that again, it's nuclear-powered. It's got a mini-nuclear reactor that powers a turbine, which basically means it can just fly around the world and hit any target anywhere, anytime. Which changes the game, doesn't it, in warfare? It kind of means now that every aircraft carrier, every overseas base is a sitting duck, waiting to be hit by one of these if the war escalates. Now, is any of this true? Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Yeah? Have a sip of my coffee there. Yeah, by the way, I'm in a car park. And it's quite busy. There's cars driving past, there's people walking by. It's quite windy outside as well. So you're gonna hear a lot of background noises. But anyway, yeah. Is it true? In my opinion, surely they would have built this years ago. Not just the Russians, anyone. You know, nuclear power, nuclear science, nuclear technology, that's been being fucked around with since the 40s, right? The 40s and the 50s. It's kind of hard for me to believe that they've only genuinely just finally cracked the science on how to actually put a mini nuclear reactor into a cruise missile. I would assume they would have done that 50 years ago, at least. You see, where I stand on all of this stuff is it's all an illusion, yeah? They're just telling us stories and they're just drip feeding us these technologies because it keeps us, obviously, in the false reality of things, doesn't it? You know, I've been quite open about this. In my opinion, they've already made the ultimate missile and the ultimate flying machine years ago. Yeah? What most people would call a UFO or UAP, which is just a ball of energy that never runs out of fuel and it can basically shoot lasers out of it and you can control it with your mind. In my opinion, they made that years ago, but they can't come out and say that they've made this because that makes everything else irrelevant, doesn't it? No one's going to join the army. No one's going to join the Navy. No one's going to join the Air Force, knowing that the City of London has a whole fleet of flying UFOs that can turn any city into dust. Are they? So they have to keep certain technologies hidden so they can use war and the military as a way to keep us in the false reality and control us all, isn't it? So no, I don't believe this is new. I believe they probably made this or had this technology years ago, to me, it's just being released as part of the overall story of World War 33. And if we look at this as part of the storyline, it means that the USA is now no longer the dominant force in regards to strike ability. Their Tomahawk missiles are now kind of crap in comparison. So this is obviously going to lead to, especially with Trump in charge, Trump isn't going to, Trump, his whole character is kind of ego-driven. He's not going to like the idea that somebody else, another nation, has something better than him. So he's going to probably pour a lot of money into now trying to catch up and overtake the Russians in regards to this kind of technology. Purely from an ego point of view, he's just going to do that. Which is kind of similar to what happened in the space race, and the Apollo missions. Just like that clip there I showed at the beginning from Interstellar, where in that film they're kind of saying that the whole point of the Apollo missions was to bankrupt the Soviet Union. Yeah, a deception campaign to fool the Russians into thinking that they've gone to the moon, therefore pushing the Soviet Union to spend more than they had trying to play catch up, which ultimately led to their demise in 1991. Got to remember, there's a lot of truth hidden in fiction. A lot of these films are talking truth, yeah? The USA is already, 300 trillion in debt? The debt is unpayable. Everyone knows this. The US debt is unpayable. I think it works out per working adult, I think $500,000. So that means if you're living in the USA right now, you're a US citizen, you in that country have already got $500,000 worth of debt over your head. Which is ridiculous, isn't it? You're barely going to make that in your lifetime, let alone be able to make it to pay it back to your country. And of course, your children, by the time they get to a working age, that debt is just going to go up and up and up. Now, I know, obviously, I'm not an expert in how the debt-based banking system works. It's obvious that the more debt you have, the better. But at some point, somewhere, and this is just a way that capitalism works, there has to be a crash. And the most likely country that's probably going to crash is the USA because of their debt. Yeah, the interest they are paying on their debts is more than their military budget, and they have the largest military budget in the world, the USA. At one point, the US military budget was bigger than everyone else combined. I know that's changed now because of, World War 33 going on. Everyone's upped what they're paying, but, we're talking mega money here. And there's going to be a great reset at some point in the financial system. And I don't know, this whole phony imaginary missile race, the race to catch up with the Russians and make hypersonic missiles and unlimited range nuclear powered missiles, this could be it. This could be the thing that finally just finishes off the USA for good. Yet again, all in the name of war, without there actually being any war whatsoever. A current theme we're having here with this war, the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, where the main concept of a war, men killing other men, isn't really happening, but everything else is happening. The arms race is happening, the massive build-up of troops are happening, and there's definitely a lot of bombs landing on empty buildings. There's definitely cheap drones, that are carrying like a tiny grenade being launched at each other over in the Donbass region, but the actual men fighting men isn't going to happen, and it probably won't. But the theatricality and deception will definitely carry on. As well as the propaganda, the chicken feed, the canary traps, the double cross operations, the false flags, all of the supporting stuff around the war is definitely going to happen, is happening. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, does this exist? Does this not exist? Pissants like me and you will never know really what's going on there. But this is definitely a new chapter in the World War 33 narrative that's going to cause, the storyline to carry on, right? Think, once again, I always say this, think how many people in the last week now, all these kind of geopolitical analysts, these ex-colonels, these ex-CIA analysts, these ex-Marine intelligence officers that go around, they all basically interview each other for their podcasts and their shows, talking heads. Once again, this whole concept of a nuclear-powered missile has once again kept all of those guys in a job. For the next 2 weeks now, they're going to spend hours upon hours interviewing each other, editing their videos. And of course, these videos will be watched by millions and millions of people. Of course, the war is real. I've seen it on TV. I've just watched a former colonel have an hour-long interview and discussion with a geopolitical analyst and Russian expert about these missiles. You know what I'm saying? It all keeps that side of it going, doesn't it? Anyway, that's it for this recording. We live in a twilight world. There are no friends at dusk.